Hello. My friend is Phoenix. Down. Yes. She's all disappointed now. I'm here to talk about how disability is visualized in the pop culture and science fiction world and how we see the otherness around us. And I'm going to start off with the imagery of a young person. And when you look around you, you want to see your reflection back. So for me as a young person in a wheelchair, there wasn't much out there on the small or large screen that reflected me until I went into the comic book shop. I don't know, it probably inspired me to become a professor. But Xavier kind of showed a different view. Here was a person whose brain power was beyond the ability of most people, but yet chose a public face of a wheelchair user. He chose to present himself as disabled and hide his super abilities, his otherness. And you know, we see him representing a new kind of character in pop culture, a kind of modern day myth. And literary critic Leslie Fielder talks about this in his work, and he says, the myth is quite simply the myth of the end of man, the transcendence or the transformation of human. More fruitful is the prospect of radical transformation under the impact of advanced technology and the transfer of traditional human functions to machines, of Homo sapiens into something else, the emergence, to use the language of pop culture in the genre of science fiction, of mutants among us. And really, he's talking about two different types of mutants. The mutant that is physically different, and then the cyborg, the one that has an augmentation. And we have them represented here as body abnormalities in the form of the X-Men character, the Beast, and the DC character, Cyborg. Mutants are basically the unabashed or the unashamed disabled. They demand that society accept them as they are. For who they are. While cyborgs are slightly different. They are the disabled person who demands that society conform, usually in the form of assistive technology, to their bodily differences. We see in the mutant the possible dreams and nightmares that body difference can offer. However, as society absorbs the otherness and the strangeness pop culture offers, we can see acceptance of the otherness in the reality of life. We explore this scenario of freakness in film and books. We retain this connection with the exotic that Fielder believes we need to be able to face the otherness of reality. Fielder believes these new mutants must essentially be more black than white, more female than male. In other words, being an atypical body or mind allows you to transcend the normal otherness of race and gender, allows people to see each other as not just different physically and mentally, but beyond the measurements of typical humankind. And we see this in our relationships with each other and with the way we structure our lives. Sorry. There we go. We used to see the mutant as the monster. In the Greek myths and the myths of old, we saw individuals like the Cyclops be these dangerous monsters, almost mindless, animalistic. However, pop culture has presented us a different Cyclops, a Cyclops that's heroic in the form of the X-Men character, a different variation on an abnormality, But yet both of them represent a real genetic variation to the human genome, to the human possibility. And that is the actual condition of Cyclops syndrome, which is possible in humans and allows us to understand that difference. We see the same thing in cyborgs. Literary critic Craig Klugman explores this idea in his essay, From Cyborg Fiction to Medical Reality. He traces two types of cyborgs in science fiction, the replacement body and the enhanced body. The replacement body is usually the fixing of a disabling condition. Science fiction, of course, can even play that to the extreme of the fixed body by transferring a brain into a new artificial body. And again, as we, as a culture, become more accepting of this otherness of adaptability, we start to see the characters change in pop culture. We've seen the Terminator, our friend, go from enemy to hero as we become more attuned to our own body's cybernetic replacements in the form of replacement joints, replacement body parts. We see more prosthetics around us, we become more accepting of them. We see individuals like this picture where you have the actor who plays Iron Man presenting an Iron Man prosthetic to a young boy who's missing a limb, giving him a chance to kind of become his hero and become part of the adventure. We also see science fiction take the idea of replacement body parts and replacement adaptations to the extreme in characters that use their replacement parts not just as tools to make them normalized, but to create the abnormal that allows them to be enhanced and advanced. This kind of leads us to the question of how human are we? How human is the mutant or alien? How much man is in the cyborg? At what point does the abnormal and augmented body cease being human? Judith Butler explored this in her work, and she asked, how does the materialization of the norm in bodily function produce a domain of objective bodies, a field of deformation which, in failing to qualify as fully human, fortifies those regulatory norms? What challenge does that excluded and objective realm produce to a symbolic homogeny that might force a radical rearticulation of what qualifies as bodies that matter, ways of living that count as life, lives worth protecting, lives worth saving, lives worth grieving? And that becomes one of our new modern conundrums. How far do we go in our objective bodies before we cease being human? We've explored that in science fiction as well. I'm sorry, went one too fast. With the idea of what is more machine than man. We see our classic villain of Darth Vader kind of being presented as unredeemable. Ben Kenobi damning him by saying he's more machine than man. He's not savable. And yet, in the end, he is redeemed. And his redemption causes his humanity to come back. And his mask is taken off, and he's revealed once more to be partially humanized, once again within the realm of man. But we see that science fiction now has gone even a step further. With the new X-Men movie, we see a character who chooses her objected body as her otherness, to be the face that she shows the world. And though she can pass easily as any normalized human, chooses instead to look as a mutant, to look as the other. And we see that once again in this idea of lives worth embracing, lives worth living, as everyday humans kind of take the same step. And we see the soldier coming back with his prosthetic limbs and not worrying about whether they look normal, but their functionality and maybe even their enhancement. And we see individuals like Stella Young, who has done a TED Talk herself, embracing her body difference and showing her objective body as an inspirational tool to have others show themselves to the world and express themselves. Thank you.